Rappin' with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin' with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So I'm really excited on today's show. I welcome Richard back from the Afishionado Channel, Reef.com, as well as Clean Waterways. So what's up, Richard, man? Thanks for coming back. You were on last year.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I know, right? Thanks for having me. It's always good to see you and your followers, and good to be here just to talk about some of the few things that I've been up to, I guess.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, you were on the show last year, and we're going to talk about, and we talked about a number of things last year, but on today's live stream, we're going to focus more on this Clean Waterways project that you're involved with. But before we get into that stuff, I want to take care of a little business. We have a couple of new sponsors. I'm pointing the opposite way that actually the logo is on my screen here, but I'm really stoked to have both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine on board as my new sponsors for the show. They're two great companies. I'm a big customer of both, so really psyched that they're supporting the show and that they're on board. And hey, I also appreciate all the folks out there that have been tuning in and making all this possible. So thank you. I see some familiar faces out there. Great Bearded Reef is on the stream. Mike Johnson, Greg Carroll, what's up, Greg? Producer Reef, John Kidd, what's up, all folks? So, all right, let's let me say one last thing too. I think you guys are doing a great job in terms of hitting that like button, but please smash that like button if you haven't done so already, so we can get more folks to watch the live stream. And as per usual, feel free to leave your comments in the chat. Questions for Richard or for myself are always welcome. So Richard, man, you're a busy dude. You got a lot of things on your plate.
I try to stay busy. Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, like in this industry, there's so many things going on. And then, like I think a few years ago when I had an interview with Dr. Charlie Varon, he kind of left a profound impact on me, and saying that we have to be the ambassador for the hobby and for the greater world. And I just saw an opportunity to apply aquarium technologies and bring it to, I guess, the real world scenarios. So I was like, you know what? I think this is a good chance to be a good ambassador, and then just bring a chance to do something to make a change for the better.
So for the folks out there that don't know what Clean Waterways is, now you sent me a whole bunch of video, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm
Yes.
going to roll that video right now, and that'll come up in about 20 25 seconds. But Richard, why don't you give everybody a real basic, as many details as you can in terms of what Clean Waterways is all about and how you got involved.
Sure. Clean Waterway is, well, for those of you guys who doesn't know where I'm at, I live in close to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we are called the Venice of US because we have so many intricate small canalways built all around. And what they have done years ago when they're dredging and making these canalways is that they didn't plan this very like wisely. And as you know, water flow is such important thing. And from our home aquarium, we know how important flow is. But a lot of these small canalways, like water flow is like almost non-existent. So a lot of the, like the storm drain is bringing all this trash from the streets and et cetera, from commercial buildings and such, and it's just stagnating over there over the years. And it's just going downhill and everything is just crumbling. The whole ecosystem is basically crumbling. So basically, I got in contact with the owner of the company, and they were really excited to do. He had an aquaculture farm before, and he was like, we had all these, like fecal matters in the water. We can use a protein skimmer that I used in the in the aquaculture pond. Like can we apply this in some way? And like I was like, surely there has to be someone that's already doing this kind of work, right? But then we looked it up, no one was doing it. So you know what? I was like, I know that this scale is so big, so even though it's a small canalway, the water volume total is such a big, big scale. So we reached out to the brightest mind of the industry, Raj from MRC, Julian of Two Little Fishies, and Chris of ACI, and just countless other people. They were just so eager to help to better the environment and just to be part of it. And we were able to come up with 3 smaller size skimmers that's appropriately sized for this application and create a 30-foot barge. And then we offered a city pilot program. And then we've been just putting, like, we've been working about a few months now just to pull the pollutants out of the water. As you guys know from having a protein skimmer in your aquarium, it pulls out a lot of stuff from, like nitrates, phosphorus, anything from feces and stuff like that to control your nutrients, right? And then it's been doing an excellent job in doing that. And then while we were pulling out all these, fecal matter and other stuff, we've been finding out it's also pulling out stuff like cocaine and other, gas and grease and stuff like oil and so many other stuff that we didn't account for, and then it's making such a difference. And the byproduct of all of this has been just outstanding experience so far. And then I guess we'll share that a little more as we progress with this interview. Sorry, I got a little chatty there.
No, that's quite all right. So you reached out, you kind of got the ball rolling on this thing.
Well, they came to me and asked, like, who can we, like, what kind of team can we put together? Do you know any scientists? So I recommended a few people. I consulted with them before I was hired in this company. And I mainly did it like, as a pro bono, as a free of charge kind of thing, because I believe in the project. I wanted to help them to make a difference in the world. And then I guess they saw the value in my inputs and my work. And then when they offered, I didn't have a second hesitation, and I just jumped in both feet fast.
So what's your official role or title with Clean Waterways?
I'm a director of products because basically I kind of designed the barge using all the products and et cetera, and see what works, what doesn't work, and how we could make it a little bit more efficient, and to train everybody on the barge to be kind of like self-sufficient, so that even when I'm not there, they know how to operate a skimmer, because we have to constantly change the knobs because of incoming tides, like low tides, high tides, change of salinity. I mean, that's something that we could talk about later, because salinity changes and during tides are just astronomical.
So that impacts the skimming in terms of, so there needs to be somebody there to kind of account for that stuff and make adjustments. What so this company was actually formed for this project, or was Clean Waterways already a company that was out there?
No, this was actually just formed for this project.
Wow. And how many people right now are on the project?
I believe we have about 11 people.
Wow. Okay. So is this something that's going on like 24/7? Is the barge you know, pretty much operational all the time, or is it running shifts?
It does run in shifts. Unfortunately, we can't run 24 hours a day because we are in the middle of the water. We don't have electricity running all the time, so we have to run generators. But thing is, even the I guess the generators, I mean, they're loud. Even if the the ones that say these are the most quietest one in the market, you could still see, you know, 50, 60 decibels. That's like 7 meters away, but it's still relatively loud. So we don't want to be a nuisance to the all the people that's over there, that's living over there, residents. So we run anywhere. We run from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day.
And you know, okay, so one thing on the video that folks didn't you know, we didn't have any sound on the video. I took the sound out of the video you sent me, Richard. So it's noisy.
No,
it makes a lot of noise. Is that an issue in terms of you know, you guys are going for certain, you know, hours during the day and what have you, but have neighbors complained about it in terms of the disruption?
No, fortunately, we had zero complaints. However, I mean, like, it's actually contrary. A lot of people have seen, because we've been covered by all the major media's news media outlets, and a lot of people came out to see what we're about, and they were just so appreciative of what we're doing because they're starting to notice a difference already. So zero complaints so far.
Good. Now, how big of an area are we talking about? This is a specific canal, right, in Fort Lauderdale that
Yes.
you guys are working on?
Yes, this canal is actually possibly one of the most filthiest canal in Fort Lauderdale. This is where we had a spill, infrastructure failure, and where they had like millions of, hundreds of gallons of, millions of gallons of straight feces. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not showing a picture of feces. I'm showing a couple pictures you sent me of the garbage that's been collected there. So,
oh yeah,
thank you for not sending me pictures of feces.
Right. No, the garbage and stuff like that. We do have some downtime, and then when we have downtime, I have the guys to collect garbages that's floating in the water, because, you know, like, I mean, we're there, so we're there to clean the water, not only what's in the water, but actually what's on top of them as well. So I have the guys to do it. We roughly remove average about 100 pounds of trash every week.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. That's that's a problem.
It is. It really is. It's disheartening in a way to see that much trash every week. I mean, but I also keep in mind that is by the downtown Fort Lauderdale, which is hot tourist spot. So, you know, like, I mean, it was kind of expected. It's like South Beach in Miami. You know, you'll see trash there all the time, regardless how many times they clean it throughout the day.
So we got a couple of comments. John Dahl's comment is, good on you for taking up the cleaning effort. And Flipper's Reef is wondering, are there plans to make this a permanent installation?
So right now we are dealing. Okay, so in order to be even working in these cities and stuff like that, we have to not only pass the city's regulations, but we have to also pass the Florida's regulations as well. So there's a lot of three-letter government agencies that we have to jump through, all the hurdles. We have to deal with their scientists to be effective. So right now, what we're doing, because we only have one barge, and I know that like everybody is, like right now, especially during the COVID time, money is very tight.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's the same thing for the government too. So like we work with their scientists, and what we do is, like we work one spot until we see a drastic improvements of, bacteria, coliform bacteria levels going down, and dissolved oxygen levels coming back up, pH level going back up. Once we notice that, and then they give us okay to move on, then we slowly start to move the barge upwards, to where this, we're super filthy, and then we just filter that area again, and then just move up continually until we're done.
How many? I mean, what kind of like size area can those protein skimmers handle in terms of like, I don't know. I can't wrap my hands around in terms of how many gallons it's processing, but in terms of, let's talk about like square feet, square footage, or something like that. How big of an area can it clean up?
That's actually a very good point. A lot of people, they don't realize the scale of what we're doing. And they just look at it like, that's too small of a skimmer to make a dent in an area of that big. First, like the common misconception was that we're not trying to filter out the whole ocean. So our barge, there's literally only two can fit in that whole like canalway. So basically we measured it and we made the barge according to that size. So we made a size where boat could pass us by without any issues,
Yep.
right? And when we go to a commercial scale where we're talking about in like huge gallons of body of water, we don't go for like gallons per hour like how we do in the hobby. Like for example, like RK2 or something like that, with those big tall skimmers in wholesale facilities or whatever, they're like, I don't know, what, 1,500 gallons per hour, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
What we have to do is we have to go by gallons per minute in order to be just effective, just to be even approved by like criteria, And gallons per minute per skimmer has to be a minimum of 500 per minute. But we go by almost 1,000 gallons per minute just to be effective, because like I mentioned earlier, salinity is a big factor, especially when they open all that floodgates for the storm drains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If salinity goes down as low as 4.
Oh.
4 ppt, it is super low, and then we still skim. We're still able to skim at those times. And I mean, just to give it as a perspective, I mean, like a 1,000 gallons per minute is like what, 60,000 gallons per hour. And we have multiple pumps powering these skimmers, and one of them is a business top of the line pump from Germany. Alex is a fantastic guy. I reached out to him for help, and then one of the pump that we run is 18,000 gallons per hour pump. It is absolutely beast, and I love it. But I mean, that's what makes us effective in terms of effective, because that's what the scientists, they look for, what amount of water that we're moving.
So, who gets the great job of cleaning out those skimmer cups? I mean, you're talking about human feces and whatnot. Hopefully, you're not scooping human poop out of those things.
Actually, for my philosophy, and the thing is that it doesn't matter if you're the president. It doesn't matter if you're just a technician. Everybody has to touch it. Because thing is that we do have automatic cleaners, but thing is that every time you clean those skimmers, they put 6 gallons of fresh water in there, and it dilutes our samples. So that's no good. So I told them, you know what, we're just gonna clean everything by hand, and you know what, that's part of the job that we do, and then we have to give accurate result to the state. So I mean, like for example, city and the state never had this much data. We have a controller on board as well. We do a manual test, and then we have a lab test, and then we have Apex installed into our barge that gives the data like 24 hours a day. And then we send them to the city, and they never had like that kind of data before. So they're seeing all the trends and stuff like that, and correlations with all the events and such.
How easy is it to move that barge up and down the canal? Is it pretty much anchored in one spot, or in terms of the tide kind of coming in and out, and that's pretty much getting the whole volume of water in that canal through, processed on that barge? Is that kind of the thinking?
It's kind of anchored in. We have every barge will have like a poles on each end of the barge, so that we lower those and we kind of anchor ourselves into place. But before we do it and such, we have to make sure that there's nothing underneath it, like no seagrasses and stuff like that, or no reef. I mean, luckily for us, we didn't have to worry, because everything in our canal was completely dead. Completely, no, there was no life there whatsoever. So that made it easier for us. But we do have precautions and everything in place, just to make sure that we're not disturbing any ecosystems.
So our buddy Chris Meckley from ACI Aquaculture joined the stream. What's up there, Chris? So Richard, you mentioned that Chris helped out and Julian was consulted. What did these folks do in terms of helping out, consulting with the project specifically?
Thing is that they have such like a mountain of, like knowledge, like, so like whenever I have run into a situation, for example, like with Chris, like we're having issue with, like what do we do with such a low flow area? And then he's like saying like, well, then we could kind of like try to redirect flows in certain ways, so that with the incoming tide and outgoing tide, we kind of flow things differently so that we could kind of like work with the nature, but also that we also create from going above that, we created a little workstation with the booms, and we closed out certain areas, and then we use the flow in that area to clean. And that was, like I integrated from Chris's idea into, I added a little bit more and then made it into a little bit mine. With Julian, I was kind of puzzled because this work area is pH is so chronically low. I mean, you would not believe it how low it is. I mean, on average, you're looking at around like 7.5 pH on an outdoor setting.
That's not good for growing SPS.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And I was like 7.5. I'm like, I've seen as low as before at 7.39 or something like that. I'm like, how does it get so low? And then Julian's like, well, he's a mangrove master, and this is actually one of the mangrove preserve. You can't touch anything there, and then everything is just all you see is mangrove, right? And if you've seen like Amazonian tanks and stuff like that, freshwater tanks, people keep their water like in a brownish color, right?
Yep.
It's like when you drink iced tea, how it's brown is because the leaves, they produce tannins, right?
Yep.
And then the mangroves are one of the most tannin producing plants in the world. I had no idea about that. And those tannins, when enough of it, it causes tannic acid, and it also brings down pH. And then so with in the correlation of very low oxygen level that's in the water because of all the pollution, along with all the tannic acid that's in the water, it's driving the pH down all the way. So that was something that I figured out after conversing with Julian. So like they're just shooting off all these things in me. I'm like just absorbing like a sponge and try to apply this into our barge.
So in terms of doing some research on this project, Richard, I saw that you guys, started off with a 2-week pilot program. So obviously that pilot program was a success because it's still ongoing, right? What's the immediate plan at this point?
Well, we are planning to clean this whole canalway first, and second of all, then it branches off in so many different parts of it in Fort Lauderdale. So we want to clean the most affected parts that had the infrastructure issues where they had a whole bunch of just raw sewage in there, and we want to clean those areas because I see people kayaking, swimming, and fishing there all the time, and it just, me just knowing what's in there, it just bothers me, and especially, it's like I believe it's like Florida way of living, like kids just jumping in the water and swimming and stuff like that, and it's I want to do something to give it, give that back so that's not taken from them. So I wanted to do more and then clean up the Fort Lauderdale is our top priority right now. And then from then on, move on to different cities. We do have applications for freshwater as well. I was surprised to find out there's actually freshwater skimmers out there.
Oh.
That's from, that derive from a koi pond, like koi ponds and such. But we are designing something that's effective in a lot of a freshwater area where they have skeletons and stuff like that to clean and to raise oxygen levels. Because, like protein skimmers, foam fractionating is all using oxygen to clean, airs and stuff like that. That's so we're raising drastically amount of pH and the dissolved oxygen levels in the water because of the method that we're utilizing, and use the clean water. I'm using that to clean the fresh water, as well as my end game, I guess, is I really want to do something big. Like I want to do something with Lake Okeechobee. I think that's like #1 goal for me because I feel that a lot of the big sugar and stuff like that has been dumping out too much nitrates and phosphates using their fertilizers into the water. And I think we can use this technology if scaled correctly and positioned correctly. We could do some damage and then reduce the amount of red tides that are occurring in Florida.
So a couple comments in the chat here. I see Greg Carroll is doing a serious advocating of the thumbs up on the live stream, so everybody can smash that like button, like Greg is asking and I'm asking. That would be awesome because more people will be finding this live stream. Amanda Meckley is asking, what kind of crazy things have you been finding in the waterways? That's an interesting question. Anything really bizarre?
Anything that I've been finding in the water? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What crazy things have you been finding in the waterways? Crazy things. Anything crazy?
Well,
besides cocaine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, level of that, how high amount of drugs that we were finding in the waterway, that was kind of shocking for me. But but I mean, one thing that really shocked me in general was how low the oxygen level was in the water. Because we were expecting the fish and wildlife to survive in these waters, but there's no oxygen in the water. So that was one thing that was really shocking to me.
I'm showing a picture of the I guess it's called the boom, with that you put across to block certain things from crossing the leaving the water. It's I don't know what the terminology. I think it is something called a boom, but it's showing a lot of oily residue and a slick, and it just looks pretty darn disgusting.
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we create this workstations, using what we call booms, and then we block out that area, and then when we have a fish tanks, we know where all the like things, detritus and all the bad stuff settle to in our sediments, and in our substrates, like rocks, sand, and stuff like that, right? And if I just clean the water, if an incoming tide's coming in, even if it's just a little bit, that fresh water will get dirty in no time because everything else around that environment is dirty, right? So me along with my buddy Shane of 24/7 Aquariums and such, we came up with an idea to close up certain areas and stir up the sediments and then put the skimmer intake right on it. So we're sucking up all that gunk as well as sulfate in the water, so that first we'll have the sand, color of the sand back instead of just that black gunk that's just sitting there. And whenever the new fresh water is coming in, then the water will remain fresh until it gets dirty again.
So, right now you guys have one barge, right? And you're working on one canal. So I'm going to assume that this is also an issue in other canals in Fort Lauderdale. Is that a correct assumption that there's other canals that could also use this type of cleanup?
Yes, there is actually not only Fort Lauderdale, but a lot of waterways in Florida in general needs our help. There's a lot of great companies out there that's actually trying to do something about it. Key West just recently started a project with just the bubbles. They were putting oxygen back into the water, and because that micro bubble is so small, their theory is that it will be effective on reducing algae and stuff like that out of the water. And the one thing that I've been telling the city officials, because we had multiple city officials coming out and checking out our system and such, and having presentations for all of them, what I've been telling them is, we produce a lot of the oxygen as well, because our technology is based on oxygen. We use, Venturi pumps that we commonly use in our skimmer. It's like you can see when you turn your skimmer on, all that air bubbles are coming up. That's right. All air, So we're using air to do it, and the output of the air, what comes out, the oxygen level just jumps up. For example, we talked about it briefly before the show. We have a third party. State of Florida hired a third party lab to come out and test every single canalways of South Florida once a week. And they check for oxygen levels as well as coliform bacteria levels and many other stuff. And it's and it's a lot of the places are just bad all across the board, And I guess we could use this spoiler, I guess, but ever since we had the infrastructure failure a few years ago, that canalway never had a passing grade ever. And I think I sent you a picture of that as well, Keith. But on that one, you can see that we got green for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And
No, I mean that's impressive, man. Because kind of like looking at the pictures in terms of what you were dealing with, in terms of the before versus the after. In the video that you provided to me, I was showing it. I think the latter part of that video, they were showing a lot of aquatic life that was now in the canal, and I'm assuming that wasn't the case when the project started.
right, right. For example, I mean that's an excellent. For me, yeah, that's visually very like positive thing because like when the dissolved oxygen level is so low that we know that life will have a hard time surviving, and then like when the life is starting to come back after a few weeks because of the improved conditions, it's very encouraging. Like a lot of local fishermen, they gave up this canal on finding bait fish. Like a lot of the fishermen, they use this fish called mullet, and a lot of times they migrate from, I believe, from North Carolina, and then they migrate all the way down, and they use this fish to catch like snooks and other bigger fish that are native to Florida, and those fish start to come like crazy to our area barge, and then like I sent you a picture where they're eating the algae off of our ropes that where we use to tie down our barge. I mean the barge and the booms and such. They're eating all the algae off of it. We have in like like we have like inverts like crabs and such that's coming back to the area, and then those small fish and small like animals are bringing in turn like a bigger fish, like snooks. We have like barracudas coming in. So I mean it's very encouraging and very rewarding to see your work. Like you can see that when you see an animal, you kind of, I feel very rewarded by it.
What's your hope in terms of the I guess it's the city right now, right? In terms of Fort Lauderdale that is sponsoring the project, at least helping to fund the project. What's the hope? Is that you'll have some metrics where you'll be able to prove the success and then widen this throughout the state?
Right. Yeah, that's the end game. Like to we want to work with more cities, and then more first more cities and more states, and then like down the road, I mean just expand, because there's a lot of waterways and such, like that can utilize our services, and a lot of people, they just look at oceans and waterways as a big filter, and they could only take so much before before they go bad, and I want to, that's what I keep pushing to the people, and hopefully it will come across and like make them think, and hopefully change their mind, because like they're not like you and me. We're hobbyists, so we kind of see these things, but they don't have a tank. They don't really pay attention to these kind of things, but hopefully it will.
Well, I think enough folks will realize. I think I saw one comment before in terms of whether or not there's any manatees in these canals, and I assume that there are manatees, but probably no manatees in that canal that you guys were working on when this project started. But there's a lot of folks out there. Florida's a big place in terms of fishing, and if you start crossing off certain areas of the canal system in terms of fishing, then that's going to kind of get people to wonder, hey, how can I do something to help kind of turn this around? And I think that's it's
Right.
it's good to have a broader interest in that sense. And certainly, yeah, we're
Absolutely.
all reef keepers on this live stream, and that's our hobby. But I think it's pretty awesome, Richard, that you're able to kind of turn your expertise into something that's helpful beyond reef keeping and to help the environment. Because I think sometimes reef keeping might get a bad rap, right? In terms of, well, aren't you guys, potentially destroying the reefs? Well, that's not really the case. So, I think this is also another example of how we
Right.
could.
No, we get the bad rep. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We get the bad rep because we're out of all the lobbyist group, we're the poorest one. No one is there to stand up for us. So in the end, money talks, and those people who have the bigger pockets, they get to point fingers and say that's your fault.
So this is.
But hopefully this will be. Go ahead.
Go finish your thought.
No, hopefully this will like advocating for the hobby, and like people knowing that this technology came from the aquarium hobby will shine a better light onto the aquarium hobby overall. Every interviews that I have given for all the national as well as local, all the headline has been aquarium technology. So I'm trying hard to bring a positive light and influence towards the industry and the hobby, and hopefully, like people will start to see it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So this is an interesting question by Flipper's Reef. Can this help with the red tide issues down there?
Sure.
How so?
I believe that it can, because thing is think about it this way, because red tide is caused by an algae, right? And what does algae need to survive? They eat nutrients, phosphate and nitrate, right? Remove the a lot of the phosphate and nitrate that's used in fertilizers by different, I don't know, like I don't want to name any sugar plants or anything like that, but like if they use we suck up all the nitrate and phosphate, and I think it's going to give them a less fuel to grow, basically. So we won't have as much, at least my opinion is that we won't have much of a reoccurrence of them, because red tide is a naturally occurring event. But I feel that because we are putting so much nutrients in the water, it happens more often. But I think that if we do something about it to reduce it to a point, like dramatically, hopefully, if we do it to that much, then it will help. That is my hope.
How much do you think global warming is having an impact on all of this stuff, in terms of pollutants in the waterways and what have you? Is it just, obviously the higher the temperatures is not a good thing for reef ecosystems. Right. So is that kind of accelerated this issue in terms of there being problems with pollutants in the waterways?
Well, I mean, higher temperature and such will bring also like a lower pH. Acidic water is not good for any marine animals that I'm aware of. So I think it does affect them. So I mean, that's a very big question.
That's hard,
but,
hard to answer.
In a short, yeah. But I do think that it does impact, and we should, regardless of how small we may feel that we are, we should do our part individually and as a group to help our oceans and stop the global warming.
So Chris Meckley is suggesting dosing some Kalk water. Chris, why don't you help Richard out and get a 500-gallon drum of Kalk water and start dripping it into the canal?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because there are so many things that's available in the hobby that I learned over the years that that could help, but the government agencies are so careful on what for example, we're not allowed to put anything into the ocean, anything. So the only way for us to do it, because for us it'll be much effective if we could have ozone inside the skimmer.
Can't do it.
But because still it's gas, you were not allowed to do it. I was like, but it's naturally occurring every time it rains, and it's Florida, it always rains. We always have ozone, and ozone gets dissipated by sun's UV in a matter of a minute or so. As soon as it's exposed, it just dissipates. It's such a volatile gas, it goes away. And it's not going to harm anything, but I don't know. It's something that we have to fight tooth and nail just to apply.
Is that?
But yes, Chris.
Kalk water. So has that been one of the challenges? Is dealing with I'm not going to say politicians, but people in government. Is that been something that has made it tough to act quickly, or have you guys been pretty nimble and had some good cooperation from the city?
We had very good cooperation so far. I mean, yes, there are regulations, but I also understand that they are put there for a reason. So with that in mind, we try to work around it or with them as best as possible. And luckily, our company's lawyer is excellent in dealing with government officials. So we just leave all that to him, and we were able to just concentrate on our work.
What about the things that you guys cannot control? and that is, there was a sewage spill in that canal, and you talked about, you've got events where you could have some flooding and some rain events that could really, change things up very quickly.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing on that side of the equation? And are you trying to like get the city just to advocate for what you guys are doing, and just try to like make sure that those types of, well, weather is something that they can't control, but there's obviously infrastructure questions in terms of whether or not things are aging and can cause potential sewage spills.
Yeah.
Anything being done on that front to try to prevent these types of spills?
The infrastructure, from my knowledge, is that something that they're looking at very actively right now to replace, because they hadn't they placed these metal infrastructure, thinking they were estimating 50 years. It will last 50 years, but it came nowhere near it. And because saltwater is very corrosive, it's been very, very hard on all these metals and stuff like that, and that's why it caused leaks and such. But they're coming out with I know that they allocated funds separately just to repair all these things, and hopefully, I like to see them done, before there's another spillway, because it's devastating sight to see,
So Flipper's Reef comment is, if this can prove the impact on the health of the canals, permanent cleaning stations look to be the long-term solution. So hopefully that is what I would assume that's kind of like what your end game is, right, Richard?
Well, what we're trying to do is after we clean it up to a certain point where we could, you see, our CFO of the company is the president of Oyster Restoration Foundation of Florida. So we're not saying this is the sure method to fix all the illness of the ocean, but this is enough to like a jumpstart the nature, to basically like give them a fighting chance going back to where it was before, by allowing things to come back, such as oysters, like bivalves, and like seagrass, and other type of algae to absorb all the nutrient that's being created by us, right? And what we want to do is, after we clean everything up, we clean all the sand and sediments off the floor, pollutants off the floor. What I want to do is I want to create like something like a system where we put mini stuff, that's self-running, mini support system. And then, we come in like once a week or something like that and clean everything up and tune it, and then just keep on going. Or maybe I don't know. It's something that we are currently actively working for, because I don't want to just clean the water and just leave, because I know that's going to get dirty in no time. Because people, in the tourist area, people get, it's not as, they're careless. I want to be more cautious with the word that I use here, but it's a lot of people, they don't care as much. It's when it's tourist places and it's just gets trashy like crazy. So I want to put something in system so that it continues to clean even when I.
So how can we as reef keepers, we as citizens, help you guys spread the word or support this cause, Richard?
Well, if you guys could, spread it is, just putting out the awareness. I think that would help us greatly, and also writing to your elected officials, saying like, hey, this is another option that you guys could utilize, and why, that would definitely help. Like I said before, previous to the video, like dissolved oxygen that was recorded not from us, but from a third-party lab that was hired by the state, it was reading like in 20s, and then once we came in, it was like 60s and 70s, and sometimes up to 100 on dissolved oxygen levels. So it's something that all the life around it can benefit from. So I think it's definitely something that they should look into.
Well, folks, yeah, I think we could all kind of do our part to kind of like help spread the word that this is a project. Would you still call it a pilot project, or is it out of that pilot project stage?
No, it's not. Yeah, Okay. We're out of the pilot now.
Yeah, I think it's certainly worthwhile talking about this, and if there's issues locally where you folks are at that need attention, I think this is a great thing to point to in terms of a potential way to help. And I don't know if you guys have the bandwidth at this point to help other parts of the U.S., but at least get the word out that this kind of technology is out there. I think that'll be a great thing. Did I miss anything, Richard? Anything else you wanted to talk about about Clean Waterways before we talk about some other reef-related things?
Well, yeah. Let's see. I think you pretty much covered it, and I'm sorry that I went off tangents. I had so many things to, I guess, talk about in my head. I wasn't able to organize it as much as I would have liked, and I think I feel like I rambled on, so I apologize for that. But I think you pretty much covered it.
Flippers Reef is wondering, is there any effort in educating the public down there? Sounds like we need their help.
Yeah, actually, we are doing a lot of different activities with the city. They're coming out with the media team and stuff like that to make multiple different writings as well as videos and stuff like that to educate the locals over here in this area. And it's been helping, because a lot of people have been coming to the barge asking what this apparatus was and how does it work and etc. But we could always use more help. Oh, and then one other thing that was actually pretty interesting was that these canalways, for the most part, they're abandoned, right? Nobody really goes there unless you're kayaking or something like that. They're generally not really resident there, right? And then one thing that we noticed that was in early August, we found what we assume is a illegal spillway. I sent you a picture of that earlier.
You cut out, Richard. An illegal what?
Oh, illegal spillway. Like they had a commercial entity. Instead of using the proper channels of sewage, we believe they used storm drain and put out a whole bunch of gnarly chemicals, and then we were able to contain it using our booms and then take those things out. We notified our local authority right away. Surprisingly, within 10 minutes, we had a Department of Justice branch on environmental. They're called Environmental Criminal Division. They came out and they had the body cam and everything, and then they did a dye test and they led it back to the source. And because it is in such a high ranked office in the branch of the government, we're hoping that it won't be just a slap on the wrist. We hope that it will serve as a reminder, and then not to do things illegally like this to destroy nature. So that was actually something that was very cool. That was particularly, I guess, rewarding experience that we were able to catch it.
Yeah, a little.
For God knows how long. We don't know how long they've been doing this.
Little CSI thing going on there, huh?
Right. It's kind of crazy.
Jason Langer question is it possible to have the Skimmate analyze to show government what is being pulled from the water? It may show the after effects of certain projects that they allow, i.e. dredging. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We actually once a week certified lab. Those are super expensive, but our company's owner, he spares no expense when it comes to data. So he's been sending them, and then everything's been shared with the city and the state. So they know exactly what we pull out from each every week.
So Jason brings up something that's an interesting point in terms of dredging. Does a lot of dredging go on in these canals, and if so, does that add to the problem?
Yes, because when you have a really old tank, right? It does happen very often. But when you have an old tank, and usually when you don't stir up the sand or anything like that, right? And then all of a sudden you stir up everything, it kills everything, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of
because of all the sulfate. That's
a lot of toxins.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is released back into the water, and then it's the wildlife and ecosystem that suffers. Same thing over here. when they do dredging and stuff like that, if they just settle, I mean, they just pull everything out, stir everything up, but they're not doing anything to clean that up,
Yeah,
filter
it's a
that.
problem.
So yeah, that affects it. Yeah, it's a big problem.
All right. Well, listen, folks. If you have any other questions or comments for Richard, just put them in the comments section. I'm sure he will peruse the video. Richard, what else is going on, man? With Afishionado Channel, Reef.com. What's happening with the with your other pursuits there?
Well, it's I have to admit that it's been slowed down a little bit, but because of my like all my focus being like laser focused into this project. However, I've been going down to my roots, which was like always my number one goal for me was to help others, right, and educate. So I've been actually helping a lot with the local schools. So we're setting up, we're revamping a lot of those school projects because a lot of schools that I have seen, they hired somebody and like usually the cheapest isn't the best.
Yeah.
And we should know this, and a lot of times I see it and they're like, oh Rich, like they're like, Richard, like we noticed that somebody came and plumbed our system, and after that every single time we had a power outage, which happens like once a day or something like that, and whenever the power goes out, we flood, our tank floods, and we just keep adding water and fish dies. And I just check, and salinity was like below hyposalinity level because
Yeah.
they just keep putting RO water back
Yeah.
when they lose salt water.
That's not good.
So I'm like, oh, okay. And then luckily, like, oh, it's terrible, and like that creates mold, and and it's bad for the people in the front office because that's where the tanks were in the front office, and that's bad for the people that's coming in and children, and this it's always like I'm going back to my roots and then just volunteering and then having different classes available for little kids
That's awesome.
because like my end game that I want to do is I want to influence somebody to become the next Julian Sprung, in our hobby. That's very ambitious goal because like Julian, is such a great, amazing guy that brought and contributed so much into our hobby. As much as I want him to live forever, I know that won't be the case.
Yeah.
So my hope is to inspire next generation of people, and in hopes that one of them will turn out like him. And I think I'll be satisfied if I just find somebody that was influenced by me to become that level that he is right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I think it's great to try to get more young people involved in the hobby. It is the future of the hobby, really it is. And need to get
Absolutely.
them jazzed up. So what's going on in terms of the trade show circuit? The last time I saw you was at Rappin New York in June.
Right.
How that was that your
Yep.
that well you had been to I guess the Rappin Florida, right? So now that yeah.
Yes, I've been to the one in Orlando. I mean, but it's so good to see all the friends, that I'm so used to seeing in these shows, because for about 2 years we weren't able to see anybody, and just to like just have that outlet, like that place of release where we could all just meet, talk, and have fun, and just share ideas, and just have a few laughs. It was just I think it was something that everybody needed.
Yeah.
And then it was good for the hobby. I think.
Yeah, hopefully we don't go back to the way it was a year ago. Hopefully things
hopefully
don't
not.
head in that
Hopefully
direction. So what kind of caught your eye in the last couple of shows there in terms of new gear out in the market? Any impressions in terms of things that are new to the market that were revealed during those shows?
During the Orlando, the Neptune released the Sky. Sky was something that was interesting. I haven't had the chance to get a hands-on experience with them to like take it apart and compare it to different lights, but their marketing words, as well as like when I was talking to Terrence and a few other people there, it sounded very promising. So I was excited for them. One thing that I wish that they were there, but that wasn't there was also CoralView. CoralView's Hydros controller system is something that I reported even before they came out. And it was like I have one of their controllers, and amount of updates that they do based on the customer feedback has been just astounding. Amount of work that they put on, yeah, it's been just phenomenal, And I had a little bit of doubt because I had Apex for over I don't know, over 10 years. So like can they really reach that level? But I was pleasantly surprised, and I really look forward to seeing them and then kind of dig their brain and see what they have new that they haven't released yet, so I have an idea of what to expect. Because that's what these things are all about. You try to get the new information from them. So it's something that I look forward to seeing them. In Chicago, that's where Carlos is from. So I'm gonna make it an effort to finagle Carlos when I see him in Chicago.
Yeah, when's the wrap in Chicago? What's the date on? In a month.
In a month in time. It's in October, but I don't know the exact date on top of my head. I think we're like 40 days ahead or something like that right now. 40 days out. Oh, and also one thing that was cool that I've been also following was GHL's Ion Director. Using ionic probes and stuff like that. It's something. It's not new in terms of technology. However, it is very new for our hobby. So I was interested to see, and then they've been redesigning and calibrating, and then they've been just fine tuning it for so long now. I'm just really to see it work at the shows and stuff like this. That's the only time I get to see it, in action. So I'm like, Vinny, do this, make it do this. Vinny, do this. Matthias, tell us to do this. It's like, and then picking their brain and why it's taking so long, and then and then they're such a great people, So I was like, can I open it? And then we open it, dissect it, and see what's in it, see the guts and how it works. It's one of the beauties of the trade shows that I really treasure.
Yeah, I actually have two ion directors that are coming my way, and hopefully in a couple of months I'll get my hands on them. But yeah, no, they've been fine tuning and tweaking and what have you. I think the timeline for people that made pre-orders, it's probably 2 or 3 months for pre-orders and 4 months for people that
I saw the letter.
4 months for people that place new orders. I'm definitely pretty stoked to be able to put away my Salifert calcium and magnesium and nitrate test kits and have that more automated. It's definitely going to be strange though. I mean, that's kind of like part of my routine in terms of breaking out those hobby grade test kits. But I'll tell you what, with the KH director, and I know there's other folks that use like the Alcatronic and you got the Trident and all that sort of thing. But hey, man, that it's a beautiful thing to have that automatic measurement. I'm not the type though. That likes to use those things as a controller though. I like to take in the data.
No, me too.
If Jake Adams was watching, he'd be probably commenting, "I am the controller," and that's my philosophy too.
Yep.
I don't like to go.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like him.
Yeah, I don't like to get too automated. So what else, man? What else is going on in the reef?
Well, besides that, I mean, I've been figuring out volunteering, educating, and stuff like that. Eventually, I'm going to look into having another aquaculture exhibit. I don't know if I told you previously before, but last year, but I have teamed up with Frost Museum of Science in Miami. It's right next to Miami Heat Arena, Patricia and Phillips Frost Museum. And we have 100% aquaculture exhibit there. And then everything from there is man-made, including the inverts. We have, rocks are real reef rocks, and all the corals are aquaculture, all the fish is captive bred. And we came up with the videos, graphs, and everything like that. So that all the kits, it just exposes, people that's not in the hobby, but a lot of people that's outside the hobby, and to see we're not really pillaging and raping the ocean like some propagandas are leading you to believe. There's so much advancements in the hobby that we are actually contributing. Like, I mean, for example, Biota is having that Australian flathead, purchase. I mean, like they were, their juvenile terms, like where they had that long, strings or along their bodies and stuff. It's never been really documented or seen, in the wild. But I mean, because Todd Gardner from Biota in North Carolina facility, he's doing it now. Everybody, like we scientists, they know about it now. So it's something that I want to advocate more for. I'm a very strong advocate for aquaculture. So it's something that I want to educate more people on, and so that's another thing that I'm going to eventually look into once everything slow down a bit.
Jordan Hernandez comment, you just mentioned Frost. Hire me to work at Frost Museum in the Coral System with a smiley face, haha.
Well, I do know some people there, so if you have a resume, send it my way, and then I'll pass it along.
So how the tanks at home doing there, man? How are things going with the personal tanks?
It's doing great. Like my Elos tank is doing fantastic. But like as with any new tanks, there has been a little bit of growing pains here and there. Like mainly like diatoms, dinoflagellates, and a little bit of cyano. I mean, I have ungodly amount of flow in there. However, there's still a little bit of cyano that came. But I was able to eliminate all of them now, and I think it's in the right tracks. I've been also dosing a little bit of Captivate Aquaculture's trace metals. I'm sorry, and then that actually helped out a lot. Because being too clean, like in metals, in anything, if it's too clean, I don't think it's the right way. And we do like they all have a purpose in our tank, and to have to mimic the natural amount that's found in the ocean as much as we can I think is crucial. So once I introduced a little bit of metals back into my system, it's just everything is starting to flourish now. My LPS
so you
nice.
Introduced metals. So you were essentially zeroed out on all the metals in your system, and you've supplemented, and that's improved things.
Yep. I mean, like things like, you have gonoporas, right? Gonoporas and trachees and, acanthophilias and such. If you bottom out of manganese and such, I mean, it's going to, I mean, you're not going to maybe not notice it, but I mean, it's not going to be thriving the way it should. But you add a little bit of manganese, boom, and, like if you have I know you have a Bellum, but if you bottom out in iron, then you won't have any algae growth, even if you have nutrients in your system, And then you could even possibly even create a dino, but but like you dose a little bit of iron, and then that just puts things back into the gear. So I mean, I think everything has a place.
Well, my philosophy in terms of my thinking in terms of what we got going on today is that things have become much harder in the hobby these days because the equipment is so much better than it used to be in years past. We've got the skimmers are so powerful. The algae scrubbers are so powerful, and reactors or whatever, and the filtration devices. So it's really stripping out nutrients much more than what we were used to in the past. So I never remember ever like dealing with dinos many years ago, or cyano and all that stuff. But today, if you don't have that stuff, something's something's wrong, I guess.
Yeah. or I mean, better, and you have a lot of microfauna in your system, like how you did with your new system with all the live rocks and such, right? So I mean, if you go dry and whatnot, and if you have a bottomed out nutrients and stuff like that, then that's you'll run into some issues. But if you have the like I said, if we're trying to mimic the natural ocean, right? And so if you have the live rock that has all the faunas of the ocean, then you'll go through a little less issues. This my humble opinion.
Hey, well, listen. If I think there's a saying out there. It's always something with reef keeping, right? There's always something going on that you got to deal with. This is.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's why we love it, right? We love the challenge.
Absolutely. A lot of times you get punched and you hit the floor, but you got to get right back up and go for it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Richard, man. Well, listen. Unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about, I guess we'll wrap this up. I just wanted to really thank you again for being a guest on the show. The Clean Waterways project sounds like an awesome project, and like we were talking about before, I think folks, if we could at least spread some awareness about this type of technology that's out there, that's going on in Fort Lauderdale, it seems to really be doing the trick and being beneficial. So it's another option. There's another tool in the toolkit in terms of fighting this problem in terms of the pollution in our environment. So kudos to you, Richard, in terms of what you've been doing on that front. Really, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me, Keith. It's always a pleasure to
All
see
right,
you.
folks. Well, that's going to do it for this live stream. I want to thank Richard again for being a guest, and I also want to thank Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine for being a sponsor and supporting the show. And I also want to thank all you folks out there that have been tuning in and watching tonight. So my next live stream is going to be next Thursday, September 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got Dr. Tim Hovanek from Dr. Tim's Aquatics on the show. So come prepared with your questions. Should be another great show. But until then, be safe, be well, and we will see you next time.